Welcome to everybody to our event, the Braver Angels Film Club event, discussion of the recording with Malice Toward None with Charity for All, Reclaiming Civility in American Politics. This was held in February at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. And along with me, my co-leaders are Ron McFarland, Ivan Kason, Molly Zeth, and Stephanie Zamora. So we all welcome you here tonight. A few housekeeping rules. The first is that we'll be asking questions, and if you would like to answer the question, please raise your electronic hand that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. We will give preference to those who have not spoken before, and we're going to limit speaking to about 2 minutes to allow more folks to participate. And our timekeeper is going to be Molly. I'm going to start by putting in a plug for the Dignity Index. Timothy Schreiber talks about the Dignity Index, which proposes distinct phrases that enable you to score yourself and others on a scale from 1 to 8 regarding how you talk about others. An 8 on this scale means I can see myself in every human being, I refuse to hate anyone, and I offer dignity to everyone. Needless to say, most of us, if we're being honest, fall somewhat below an 8. We're putting the URL to the Dignity Index in the chat box, and I encourage everyone to visit this page to see where you fall on the scale and think about how you can do better. So we'll be putting this in this URL. Okay, and with that, I'm going to start things off by handing it over to Ron to ask our first 2 questions.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Before we get into that, I'm gonna give you a Braver Angels rules of engagement. So as individuals, we try to understand one another's perspective. We don't want to change your perspective. We just want you to give your side. And then we don't, even though you agree with somebody, but you give your perspective. So we want to have civil conversation with a smile, not always with a smile, but you know what I mean. And in our communities, we engage those we disagree with, looking for common ground and ways to work together. And in politics, we support principles that bring us together rather than divide us. Okay, so think of we are all holding hands with Ron McFarland, better known as Sugar Bear. So here we go with the first question. That's my nickname, Sugar Bear, so for you guys. Okay, the first question is pretty basic. What did you think about the film? What did you think about the film or the documentary or the whole get together there? What did you think about it? All right. All right, Diana, right? Go ahead, unmute yourself. And
there we go.
Yeah.
Diane. I thought it was very, very powerful and very interesting. And I've already shared it out with several friends, and I plan to share it out with additional friends, including my pastors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. Any additional things?
It was encouraging.
Okay.
It's encouraging to see the number of organizations and the number of people who are paying attention and want to bring civility back to our political discourse.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Diane. Anyone else? That was nice. That was short and sweet. But okay, Dan from Wilmington. How about you?
So I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure I'm navigating all this. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed with the work that the governor from Utah has been doing. I had very low expectations that anything would really be constructive and productive with the National Governors Association. I think there's some evidence that it's just as polarized as a lot of other venues, but I think he's done a great job of promoting the concept. It's not like he mentions Braver Angels in every breath, but he's delivering on the concept, and I was very impressed. I lean blue, but I have to say he's very impressive.
Oh, thank you. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, was at our convention.
Yeah.
And he gave
Sure.
a powerful message there. I was glued to him, and I was like, where did this guy come from? So yeah, I support you on that one. You know, he really was. So anyone else? Anyone else? What did they? What did you think of the film? Oh, Roxanne, here we go. Unmute yourself there. There you
Hi,
go. There you
can
go.
can you hear me okay?
Sure can, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Well, I feel like I'm definitely a newbie still. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm going back to school to
Yeah,
get my master's degree in how to be a good human being.
yeah,
And that's why
yeah,
I'm here, I'm learning so, here I thought I knew so much, and now I'm learning so much. I'm so humbled. Um,
yeah. Mhm.
and I can say I was just so inspired by listening to everyone
Mhm.
on all the panels in this movie.
Mhm.
It was just, or this conference. It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
And for the first time in quite a while, I started to feel hope again.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
And I haven't felt that since, anyway, it's been a while. So
yeah.
I felt hope, and that was pretty wonderful. I guess the only thing that, and I thought it was a Braver Angels event, so I guess
Mhm.
I didn't realize it was it's just it was separate from Braver Angels, but
Right,
obviously
right.
they believe in I mean, we have very
Yeah.
similar
Mhm.
beliefs, right? Um, because I don't, the only thing that I felt like was a gap there, it was that there was such a focus on going to church and being part of a church, and I'm not, and I've left the church a long time ago,
Mhm.
but I studied spirituality for decades, and
Mhm. Yeah,
have an amazing spiritual community that I
yeah.
am close to, and we are dedicated to doing good. So I think there was a little bit of gap in thinking that, oh, only,
Right.
what I mean? There was like
I know exactly what you mean.
it felt a little
Yeah,
limited,
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
wait a minute, there are a lot of people that don't go to church that
yeah,
are right there with you. So
yeah,
I just want to make
right.
sure they're included, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the only
Well,
thing.
a lot of times it's just the language, and it comes out like that way. But I think they were talking to you, Roxanne, as well, because here you are tonight. So that's a
Right.
good thing,
Here
right?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for listening.
Jane, and then we'll go with Al.
Okay. So I loved it. I watched it like 3 times, although I watched it on the couch twice, so I fell asleep a little bit.
Yeah.
But so I kept going back to it, and I was a poll worker on Tuesday, and I wanted to like bring something from the film into action. So I was
Okay.
talking with the senator, and we were talking exactly about how it used to be when the Republicans and the Democrats were having dinner with each other, and they were working together, and they were
Yeah.
friends, and they respected each other. And the senator, Carolyn Comita, was saying that's how it had been for her too, while she was in
Right.
different positions, and that she's really seen it change, and it's been very, very disheartening, but she's still been reaching out her hand. And on that note, I went across the sidewalk to the Republican table, of people who were there handing out, sample ballots and everything, and introduced myself to the people on that side and had lovely conversations with them. And the rest of the Democrats went over and introduced themselves. We had never done that before.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
it changed the whole feeling,
Yeah.
of being there together. And
Yeah.
and then it was quite interesting because we started a conversation with a Chinese man who had moved here in 1992, who was a uh, longtime Democrat. And when he came, and he said that now I see what's happening, what the Democrats have done, blah, blah, blah. And I won't get into the details, but another woman and I engaged with him for about 20 minutes. And he was saying statements, and we were asking how did you come to believe that?
Yeah,
saying,
exactly.
"Oh,"
Exactly.
and why
Yeah.
did you change your perspective? And I could feel myself wanting to go, oh my God, how can you,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was so pleasant.
Yeah.
And it was such an unusual experience to really engage with someone from another party. And mostly we listened. We tried to get a few thoughts in there ourselves, but he did stop when we spoke about, the issue of women's health, for instance, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
did stop. But it was beautiful, and it was disheartening, and it was very engaging. And it was something that I want to keep doing again and be a little bit more skillful at it from, all the direction from the film and from Braver Angels and all that.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Jane. That's a great story. I tell you, the key you said was listen. And so
yeah.
that's very important. Thank you very much. Al, and you'll be the last one, and then we'll go to the next question.
Hey, well, hi, Sugar Bear and Company. I don't know if I've heard that before. I kind of like it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
I don't think I've ever really hated anybody in my life. Closest I think I ever came was watching a movie. There was this, I forget the name of the movie. You might recognize it. There was this Japanese commandant of a POW camp, and he
oh
was
yeah.
the American prisoners with this bamboo cane. I
Yeah.
came really close to really hating that guy. I
Yeah.
mean, he was abusing the American prisoners the way he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just I'd never learned how to use Facebook. I logged on, got up an account on it, and never really learned how to use it very well. So maybe I was spared the kind of exposure a lot of people have had, so-called social media. I think it ought to be called anti-social media.
Yeah.
And people just seem to let into each other in these circumstances because they're anonymous, or there's no chance of interacting. I can't imagine having some of these kind of interactions at work, which was another place I would interact with people, and I've been retired now for a number of years, so that's off the table. And most of my other interactions are with people at church. And you're not going to have that kind of terrible interchange with someone in your church environment. So and in Braver Angels generally, I don't think we're the kind of people who are the problem in this country. It's the people on the fringes on both ends that are more of the problem. I've had
Al, I don't want to interrupt you. What about the film? Is that what you're saying that you
It was
learned?
good. It was like being at church. It was in church, actually, wasn't it? So,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was.
kind of that kind of experience. It
Yeah.
was kind of that kind of experience and the kind of thing you'd expect.
I got the connection. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty
I don't know.
cool.
I mean, I could go into a lot of details with it, individual experiences, but I haven't experienced much in the way of the kind of things people talk about a lot of the time, as far as people, cutting each other off and breaking relationships. I had a cousin of mine who was on the opposite side of one of the more contentious issues of the day. And I told her, I'm not, you've been in my life since I was born. She's like a year or two older than I am, something like that. And, I'm not throwing away any member of my family for that. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I live alone. If I threw away family and friends over everything I disagree with people on, no matter how strongly, I'd be a very lonely person very soon. And that's not going to happen.
Good for you. Good for you, Al. I mean, one thing, we got a connection because my father's name was Al. So,
Okay.
with that.
So is mine.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
In fact,
Okay.
you notice the last time I tell people to remember my name, it's a famous battle cry.
Oh, okay.
Well, think about it.
Say it.
Remember the Alamo.
The Alamo. Yeah, I thought
Okay.
you were
And the other half of the joke is I tell people there may be someone named Pearl Harbor out there, but I haven't met her yet.
So you should have
put
Texas up there or something to remind to go with that.
Well, that wouldn't be true. I actually grew up in New York City.
Okay.
I'm from Queens. I'll talk to you later, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope so. All right, now we'll move on to the next question. The next question is, what did you think of the political advertisement that went viral on which Governor Cox, and I think he was from Baltimore, right, and his political opponent, Chris Peterson, collaborated on? They had that collaboration on it. Anyone want to speak on that? What did you think of the advertisement? Can you remember? Sometimes I have senior moments, but I wonder. Yeah, anyone? Oh, there you go, Roxanne, rock star. Here we go. There we go.
Well, that was one of the things I was so inspired with.
Okay.
I wish more politicians would do that. And just to refresh our memories, it was where he invited, someone from the other side, a Democrat, to come and be in the ad with him. And instead of pummeling each other, they were like saying positive things, and it just was so wonderful. And I just hope that other politicians can learn from that. I actually get nauseous when it gets close to the time to vote, because some of the ads get so nasty, and it doesn't work for me as a voter. So I was very inspired by that.
All right, thank you very much. And I'm going to skip all the way down to Donna, and then I'm going to come back to Jane. Okay? Yeah, because Donna.
I just thought it was so refreshing, such a different take than the standard political commercial, which is tear your political opponent to pieces, right? It reminded me a bit of the old-fashioned public service announcements. Remember, we used to have those, and then we stopped having any kind of public service announcement, which was an announcement which was for the good of everybody, right?
Yeah.
And instead, our commercials and our political ads are for the good of just a few people, and for the detriment of people too. So this is something that really warmed the cockles of my heart. And I went on and I looked at some of the other ads that some of the other politicians had made that were members of that governor's conference, and they were wonderful. So more power to them, and let's hope that they have started a trend here.
All right. Thank you, Donna. Now, Jane, go quickly, because I've been sent a message about our time on the first question. Not your fault, it's my fault. So, go ahead, Jane.
I loved it. I loved it. And I would like to go see the other ads. I probably told 10 people about that experience, and I sent the movie to at least 4 or 5 other people as well. It just felt so sane and human, and so I really appreciated that. It was very creative and well done.
Thank you, Jane. And here we go, Mr. See you at the Alamo. Be brief, Al. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I tend to go on a little longer than is my fair share, I suppose. I remember seeing the ad, and I liked it. It was novel, and although I don't remember them going into any meat of any issues, but then that wasn't the purpose of it. It was just to show the people how they relate, and the people in general ought to relate as well. That's what I got from it. Just the other night, I registered for the Brave Angels. I think it's a debate on elections that's coming up. I offered to speak at the outset on that. And I may be guilty of going a little too strongly over on one side or the other there. So if either of you, Donna and Ron, are in the committee or whatever it is they evaluate these things with, they ask, why do you want to speak? And I told them so. I may have been a little too intense about it. I could tone it back if need be. But anyway, there won't be any doubt about how I feel about it. So,
well, they want your perspective. They want your I words. So, it just depends. Anyway, but thank you, Al. Sure. So the next, well, I'll hand it over to Stephanie. And Stephanie will be moderating the next question. Go for it, Stephanie.
All right. So the next question is, so Tim Shriver said the main source of demonization is coming from, and I was really careful to use his words in this, is coming from people in politics, media, and the algorithms. So how do you reconcile that, given that politicians are voted in and media is voluntarily consumed? And I think what I'm kind of getting at is that, do the people that we vote in, reflect what the voters want, or do they not reflect what the voters want, is kind of the, other part of that question. So who'd like to tackle that one? Jane? Oh, you're muted, Jane.
I didn't mean to raise my hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm still thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Roxanne.
But
Oh, that's still you. Okay, all right. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
and I'm not afraid. I'll be the one that raised my hand to ask that stupid question. So here it is.
Go for it.
I don't understand what he meant by algorithms. I understand the politics one, and I understand the media one. Totally get that. But when he says algorithms, wait a minute, what, is that just pure numbers, or I'm not sure what he meant by
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, I can actually answer that.
Good,
The
thank you.
algorithms are what are embedded in social media. And algorithms, in a benign definition, they're meant to push you things that you want. So, that's supposed to be for, your ease and for your enjoyment. But there's also a lot of, stories out there that the algorithms have purposely pushed us negative, misinformation, disinformation. Foreign entities can leverage algorithms and embed them in social media. And so that's, of course, the more nefarious side of the algorithms. So, of course, the social media companies justify it by saying it gives you a better experience. But, there is just a little bit darker side of all of that.
Yeah, we could probably go into a couple-hour conversation just about that. Thank you very much.
Watch the social dilemma. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Al, so Roxanne, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that? I want to move on to Al. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Forgive me if I'm overdoing it here, but it so happens that one of the four major points I made in that response I was telling you about the elections is that the big tech companies, so-called, and their algorithms are swaying literally millions of votes in our elections, and deliberately so, mainly at the instigation of the elements of the national security apparatus. They've been doing this for years overseas, interfering with democratic governments and elections, and now they're turning it into our domestic politics as well. And it's a major scandal that is being suppressed, and I want to speak to that when that debate comes up. So that's where I think the algorithms came into that mention in that the lady that Stephanie was talking about. So that's as much as I wanted to say on that. Again, sorry to take up as much of the time I've had so far here tonight.
Oh, no, that's all voices heard. Well, then, okay, so algorithms are definitely an aspect, but so the politics and the media, and even I struggle with this, that is the media really dividing us over, to make a buck? And I'm just really struggling with that. They have a responsibility. There's certain professions, doctors, lawyers, therapists, journalists, we need them to do the job they said they would do. So, but is the media dividing us? Is politicians dividing us in their quest for power? I'm very curious about anybody's feelings on that. Or is it just kind of the nature of who we are as human beings? I don't know. Jane.
I sometimes wonder about that because there's a lot of blame put towards the media, and towards fake news. And so is that more about a blame game, or just finding something, that sort of vague that people can, point a finger to? Just what media are they really talking about? I know that I listen primarily to public radio and to BBC, and I get most of my, the New York Times or things like that, and I stay away from opinion articles for the most part because they're so one-sided in so many ways. So I really want to read and look at something that is much more, goes beyond those divisions. And so I know there is healthier media out there, and there's a graphic that shows the different kinds of media in terms of right and left and in between. I don't know if anyone has ever seen that, but I can, you know what I'm talking about?
I definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something that's important for people to see that and know that, so they can pick and choose.
Yeah. Al, you're back at the front of the queue.
I'd like to defer to, I think there was someone else who might have been up there with me, backed off perhaps. Again, I'm trying to defer to others first here because I've got a lot to say about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm politically pretty active. I'm a Republican precinct delegate in the city of Dearborn, Michigan. I was at the state Republican convention back the 2nd of March, I think it was. They did well, in any case, you want someone to speak for your political perspective who will do so very well and forcefully. And that tends to be someone who's perhaps a little more aggressive about things than you are. So, that's the kind of person you're going to pick to send forth to represent you. That's just the natural way things are. You're not going to pick a milquetoast type of person. So that's as much as I'll say about that for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Laura Kendrick. Laura
William?
Kendrick has had her hand up.
Yeah, William's next in the queue here. William, did you want to say something? Unmute yourself. Where the microphone is down on the bottom.
How's
There.
that?
You got it.
Okay, sorry. I think your original question was, do we feel that we're represented? There was part of that in your question?
Yeah, because, they say that, well, the media is doing this and the politicians are doing this, but, we are voting in the politicians, and then the media that we consume is something that we do voluntarily. So, what is really the source of the demonization?
It follows money, and it goes back to Citizens United. We have a country that is run by money. We have allowed unlimited amounts of money to determine the direction of our politicians. They are self-interested. They do that. We don't have to have it that way. There's a big movement to get rid of Citizens United. The Canadians have a much better system. Their elections are limited to a number of weeks. The candidates get the same amount of money to work with, and ask a Canadian.
Interesting. Okay. Diane?
I was just going to say, I think the media has such a powerful influence simply by what they choose to cover or not cover, depending on what paper you're reading or what TV you're watching or whatever. There are a lot of us who are on the liberal side of things who will say that the accomplishments of the current administration get scant coverage. And it seems like media will pick the things that will draw. I'll go back to the money argument that the gentleman just made, that, they'll pick the things that will draw the readers of the most sensationalism.
Yeah, it's kind of up to us, too, though, if we can broaden, where we get information and see how you get as much. I know it's a big task, but I think it's kind of important right now. Yeah. To be informed. Okay. Anybody else on this question? Otherwise, I can turn it over to Ivan. Thanks, everybody, for your answers.
You keep
Anne,
missing her.
I'm sorry. Your hand wasn't raised right now. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anne, go for it.
No, it's not me. It's Laura Kendrick. She hasn't been raising her her yellow hand. She's been raising her regular hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Laura. Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, Laura. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, because well, there's so many people, so only the people that raise their hand kind of show up in the top where I can see. So if I didn't see you raising your hand, I'm sorry, but yeah, go.
Unmute yourself, Laura.
Oh, that's just paired.
Okay. I would just wanted to throw out a couple of things since we're talking about what influences we have. I know for years people have talked about how bad some of that people don't like the ads that are negative, but candidates keep using it because it seems to work. And I think that's, one issue is that they keep using negative ones because it seems to work and help them get elected. And I also wanted to throw out something that I think has made the media climate worse I mean, they're good things to the internet, to more people being able to express their opinions, but it's also kind of blurred the line between personal opinion and journalists sometimes, which is not necessarily the best. And once the broadcast media started thinking they needed to make money instead of just being for public service, the major networks, that also seemed to make it worse for news.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, thanks, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Al, back to you.
Just one last thing. I remember when I was in college, which was about 50 years ago, one of my liberal arts courses, the professor, who was a political science professor, said that when you write your paper, you can't just make the case for your own position. You have to knock the opposing position down. That was the standard approach. That's all I wanted to add here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, Ivan, you're next.
All right, thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I want to ask a question about the beginning segment of that documentary, and center on Governor Moore from Maryland. He talked about the many benefits of his state's student year of service program. I think that was for the high school senior year. Now, applying it to you, have you had a service experience that brought you into contact with people you would otherwise not have known and gave you insight into how to reach across the divide? Donna, how about starting us off?
Yeah, so for me, when I was in college, we had a spring break program where we went, some of us college students went to a small town in West Virginia, and we performed services for a few of the homeowners. They were homeowners, but they were not landowners, and I'll explain that. But we helped tar roofs and fix some things inside the house. And it was only a week, but boy, it sure was a different experience for me because it was a rural area. It was a poor area, a coal mining area in West Virginia. And it just was entirely different from any place else I'd ever been to. The reason I say they may be homeowners, but not landowners, is because often in West Virginia, you do not own the land that your house is on, because the coal companies want to be able to basically use that land to mine for coal if coal is discovered. So what I found is that the outside of the houses were in disrepair. They didn't look like much at all. But inside, sometimes they had some very nice possessions, very, very nice TVs and air conditioning and just nice possessions, because those are movable. You could, if your house got condemned because the coal company wanted the land, you could take your possessions and go someplace else.
With
And that's William. I'm going to mute him again. Anyway, so it was, like I say, a short period of time, but it was an eye-opener for me.
Wow. Sounds like here. I'm in Hawaii, and historically, many people here were working on a plantation, and you just stayed in the plantation town because you were working for the plantation. So it's a kind of a same thing. Anybody else want to talk about service experience? It must be somebody that used to be ex-military or something like that. Jane, how about you? Oh, unmute, please.
Yeah. Okay. I grew up with a social worker godmother and a social worker aunt, and mostly that's my profession. But at 12 years old, I was going into the inner city of Rochester, New York, and we were doing teaching for kids of all backgrounds. And to the point where at one point I was taking the bus home, and there were two girls that started to get into a fight with a knife. And, learning how to be in that kind of environment and deal with that. I wanted to go in and stop it, but I didn't. I just watched, and I was watching to see what was happening. And that's what I've done over the years, is I've worked at Native American reservations, the Akwesasne tribe up in upstate New York, and just was present, like they were talking about, just show up. And there were some things that I couldn't do, and some things that I tried to do, and I just tried to follow direction and be as humble as I could, because I knew that I was in a whole different culture I knew nothing about in so many ways. So I let them be my teacher. And that just was a beautiful to take them in, you know, as real people, and not to feel like I had to impose something on them or do something, you know, for them or to them, but just be present with them.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting experience. Molly, you want to start? Oh, Molly, can you unmute, please?
There we go. My phone isn't working right now, and my computer's broken. So I just wanted to say I have been last year spent a little time going to a homeless shelter, both volunteering with meals, but also with playing board games with people, like sort of building community, bringing people together. And people, that actually was one of the rare times that people talked to each other in the shelter and really like came together. And what I found was in getting to know people over board games, I run a board game company as background. And what I found in running the game nights is that people were often extremely driven, extremely smart and sharp. Nobody was into drugs, and I can't stand it when people assume that there's a lot of, like, I'm not saying nobody, but like nobody I personally was in touch with. And also this was in Boston, and the homeless shelter where I volunteer doesn't allow drugs or substances of any kind, actually. And people often were working, often full time, and were still homeless. And that was something I knew existed, but as like a, you know, kind of interpersonal, you know, awareness building, that was really helpful for me to see that people weren't, you know, we're not only extremely hardworking, but we're up a creek often by no devices of their own. So just wanted to share that was really eye-opening for me too.
All right. Well, if nobody else has a story to share, I would say just for me, going to the mainland for college, that was an experience. It wasn't service, but going from an environment where predominantly Asian population to a predominantly white population, that was very much of a different divide for me. And knowing and interacting with people who were much more verbal than people that I normally interact with. That was an eye-opening experience as well. So not necessarily have to be a service experience. It's just a part of a life experience that you meet very different people. And Anne, how about you on this one?
Yeah, thank you. What is your name?
Ivan.
Ivan, you're talking about going from one culture to another. It hit me that I came from the north and 22 years ago and came down to the south. So I came from Northern Virginia, which was a very liberal area outside of Washington, D.C., and came down to Savannah, Georgia. And when I arrived, I didn't know what Jim Crow was. So I have had a learning experience for the last 20 years trying to understand an attitude that is very still much alive, the lost cause and the separation of the races, by years and years of policy dictates as to where the houses were. So we don't live next to each other than what we look. We mirror our own selves. And so I've been really working hard to expand my group of friends and my experiences with other people to broaden the diversity of that experience. And I have to give a plug to our local senior citizens organization, and there's a learning center there, and they have been drawing people from all walks of life to continue lifelong learning, and that's really been very positive experience.
Good. Thanks for that. Molly, you want to jump back in?
No, that was just an accident. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Ron, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, just quickly. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, inner city, and I had no. I ended up getting a scholarship as an athlete at Iowa State University. And as you know, if you belong to a team, we did a lot of service activities. And when I came into that situation as coming from the environment that I came from, and then I went and did this service at a person's house, and it was white. This stage of my life, I'm more of a raceless type person. I don't know if anybody knows that is, but anyway. But back then, my whole attitude was like I had a chip on my shoulder, like I was a part of the Black Panthers. You wouldn't know that now, but and so when I went in, and it was one of the first times I ever had sweet corn in Iowa. Now, if you ever had sweet corn from Iowa, you know what I mean. And this gentleman, we were painting his house, and he just invited me in. He didn't recognize my skin color or nothing. He just looked at me as a human being that was caring. And I just wanted to share that. So.
Yeah.
All right. And anybody else before I turn it over? William. Just unmute, please.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Jane for giving us a clinic on how to deal it as a lone person in a new culture. About 3-4 times a year, I'm a caravaner, and a bunch of people own vans, and we are associated with Habitat for Humanity. So we drive all over the country and spend a couple of weeks building a house for somebody. You get to meet somebody, you get to meet the neighbors, but you realize that you need to listen, ask questions, and be humble while you're there. But it's amazing what you can find out by having conversations with people very different from you. We've even done it on Hawaii. Of course, we didn't drive caravans there, but it's just look caravaner.com if you have some, even if you don't have any skills and just have the time to go someplace and do something and listen to people.
Wow, I've never heard about that. That's a good one. Okay, I'll turn it over to Donna for the next question.
Thank you, Ivan. Next question. Peter Wenner said, one of the reasons that our politics is so angry and ugly is that there are a lot of wounded people out there, a lot of hurt and wounded people out there. He believes that religious institutions can help heal them. For those of you who belong to a religious community, have you found healing within it? And what other groups or paths can help to heal people? So, can religion help heal wounded people, and what other paths or groups can help heal people? And have you had any experience yourself with a religious community that helped provide healing? Okay, Anne, please unmute.
Yeah, mine's not about a religious community, but it really goes back to what I said before about that lifelong learning community. I think sharing the love of bringing information into your life and with other people, that helps broaden your perspectives and helps with a different lens that sometimes you don't get in isolation.
Very good. Is that the lifelong learning that is kind of throughout the United States? Yeah, I've heard one about it.
Ours is the Senior Citizen Incorporated of Savannah, and it's a adjunct, or it's part of that for the Learning Center in that And they deal with generally a 55 and older population, but I don't think we keep anybody out if they're younger. So it's nice.
Thank you, Ann. How about you, Jane?
Thank you. I don't mean to take up so much time, by the way. It's just really nice to share with folks. I've been a member of a 12-step group for about 4 decades, and I know a lot of other 12-step groups, and it's amazing because there's a primary purpose in that group, and that's to help each other, you know, to not gamble or to not drink or to not do drugs or whatever that may be, and to be of service, to learn how to, you know, follow a program of recovery, and open up to a power greater than yourself, but also not to put any kind of judgment or political discussion or cultural issues on anyone. It's just we're all equal. We all have the same problem. We're all there to help each other. It has its limitations, of course, too, but it's around the world, and it's free, you know. So and there's a lot of judgment about it, but it is, when you really see what's possible, it's really quite astonishing.
Thank you, Jane. So organizations where its members help each other. Great way for healing. Anybody else? Diane, please unmute.
Yeah, I did. I'm lifelong Lutheran, the ELCA variety, so the more liberal branch. And I've been blessed with my current pastor is just phenomenal, and it may not be from church services themselves, although they can be deeply meaningful, but lots of times one-on-one sessions with him have been very healing. He's gifted at asking questions that then get me to open up my thinking and see things in a different light.
Great, Diane. So that's a great tribute to a religious community, and especially its leader helping you. Very good. Anybody else? Ron.
I remember when I was a kid and I was going through a lot of turmoil. You know, the best place for me was the boys' club, the YMCA, going to camp, things like that, you know, because, you know, my parents were separated there for a while. And so my mom always wanted I was kind of a rambunctious child. So she always, yes, I was. But anyway, those places were a security blanket for me. And then as I got older and everything, being in activities like the band and on a team, you know, you'd be surprised how once you join something like that, a football team, wrestling team, or something, how, you know, your teammates put their arms around you and say, I got you, you know. So that was my saving grace. Yeah.
Wonderful, Ron. Yeah. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Molly Zuff.
All right. So question I have is a 2-part one. So first of all, just think through what are some of the ways we heard the governors in particular, but it could be other speakers, but governors in particular talk about working together that you would like to see spread to other political or social settings. So that's the first part. And then the second part, are there ways you can imagine that politicians could build a relationship and work together beyond ones mentioned by the speakers? So this is about what we saw or heard that is already happening that we'd like to see spread. Trying to think about like how to take this model further. That's what especially several of the last questions have to do with. And then secondly, you know, this is just about your creativity. What are ways we can think up that we imagine, you know, politicians could be working together more across the spectrum, that is, beyond ones we already heard. And I heard one example earlier before people, I mean, go ahead and raise your hands whenever you're ready, but if folks aren't ready yet, I heard one example earlier that we'd like to see a lot more people take on the co-promotion of messaging around elections, like just saying, you know, at a high level, we all want the best for America. Another one that came up that I thought was awesome is that you have this Republican governor from Utah and the Democratic governor from Maryland calling each other for advice and actually getting really good ideas from each other. So those are some ones that we already saw. What else did you see that you'd like to see more of, and what would you like to see happen that, you know, wasn't happening already? Yeah, go for it, Anne.
I would like to endorse what Bill Gladden was saying, that I would like to see our whole structure of the election time shorten and money given equally to each party, and bring this down to just maybe 6 weeks max. I don't know about the Canadian process, but this has just gotten outrageous and out of control with how much money is being put into campaigns that could have been put into really improving people's lives. It's disgusting to me.
I love that. Thanks for saying that. Any other thoughts on things you envision for politicians for the future? Think if you could meet with people who are your own representatives, what would you suggest that they do to work together more? I have a basic one drawing on the past while people are still thinking, which is, I don't know if anybody else has read Congressman Tony Hall's autobiography, but from the 80s. Yeah, he did prayer breakfast weekly. And, you know, even if people aren't religious, just coming together to kind of focus on what your higher purpose is a cool idea to me. I don't know if that's happening now, but I'd like to see it. Yeah, go for it, Donna.
I remember that a Braver Angels Alliance in Indiana got a few politicians together from both sides of the spectrum for a Habitat for Humanity project. And someone else has already raised that wonderful group, but got them together helping build a house on one day. And any kind of projects where you're in service to others, performing service with folks on the other side to help others, I think is a great idea. Brings out the humanity.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that idea of doing service together and making the relationship not just about politics and our disagreements and policy. Building on a friendship that you then, you know, can build a more political conversation on top of. Yeah, go for it. Diane will be our last one on this question. Oh, did you mean to take yours? Go ahead, Diane.
No, I do. I was trying to raise my hand, but my mouse wasn't wanting to click on the thing, I guess.
I get you.
Minnesota Braver Angels has just recently kicked off an initiative, a statewide initiative called Reduce the Rancor. And it involves Minnesota Public Radio, I think public television, both the DFL and the Republican Party, state parties, and they've involved some of the faith communities, and it's a statewide effort to try to work collaboratively to turn down the dialogue and stop being so nasty. So curious to see how this will all develop for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I would say anybody like Dan here, any others who are doing really inspiring work like that, whether it's in your own chapters or your congregations or whatever, your bowling club. You know, we watched Bowling Alone, or we watched the follow-up to Bowling Alone at one point. Definitely think about how to spread your own models, because remember, like, you're also the source. We are also the source of these great ideas, and we can spread them. Yeah, Donna, you look like you want to close us out here?
One more thing. So Diane, thank you for raising that. I knew about that initiative in Minnesota. But I'm a director of the one-to-one conversations at Braver Angels, and I've noticed recently a lot of folks from Minnesota have been signing up, and that explains it. Somebody could be Bill Doherty because he composed the conversation guys, but somebody out there, probably as part of this initiative, is plugging our one-to-one conversations, and I'm seeing the fruits of that. So thanks for pointing that out.
They're promoting the one-to-one conversations quite a bit in our statewide newsletters.
Okay.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we'll move on to the next question here. And this is actually about taking it to our own lives. So Dan, you are a good, good jumpstart for this version of the idea. So I gotta say, one of the most inspiring moments, and just gave me a lot of love for the people even more love for the people in this video, was when one of the governors explains how a friend gave him a hug. And she said, "I love you and I'm mad at you." And then they both said to each other, you know, I've got some things I want you to read. Would you do that? And the other one said, I've got some things I want you to read. Would you do that? And so they agreed to send each other things to read. And this is something I've actually done with someone in Braver Angels from the film club, actually. We've given each other books to read, assigned reading. And what I wanted to do is just ask, how do you already use this model of building and maintaining relationships in your own life? So that model of like, I'm going to love you, I'm going to care about you, I'm going to be warm towards you, and also I can still be upset with you or mad at you and, you know, move on from there. So how do you already use this model of building relationships in your own life? Or would you want to adapt this model to your own life? Just in general, when talking with people who have different opinions from you. I know I'm like, we're all like talking to the choir here because we're all at a Brave Angels event. So like, feel free to toot your own horn. I love it when people share what they're already doing. Yeah, so I'm gonna see if anybody wants to jump in on this one. Again, the model of I love you and I'm mad at you. I'll share that you know, I have people I agree with very strongly in my own family, disagree with strongly in my own family, and in one of my many religious communities. And what we do is we like go out for a drink together and just like, you know, talk it through real you know, real intensely, but also like with a lot of love. We always sort of end with the caring. So we don't, you know, go just with the argument. Yeah, go for it, William.
Getting better at unmuting. If you want to do a deep dive, Braver Angels is mentioned on page 81 of David Brooks's new book, How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Talking to Them. David Brooks, you've seen him. There's another good book that's out by Charles Duhigg, and it's called Super Communicators. They both are ways to practice skills on how to approach people well. David Brooks says, I always approach people with the expectations I'm going to like them. and it'll rub off back, but there's a lot of ways to practice good approaching, and particularly asking good questions. I've taken good questions out of David Brooks' book and applied them to a total stranger on a habitat build, and we spent the day talking.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Cool. Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind putting the names of both of those in the chat, we often like to give each other, you know, reading and article and what do you call it, and book recommendations. So thank you for that. And I will, yeah, anybody else want to go for this question, or shall I pass it on? Again, it was, how do you model the kind of behavior we saw about between Steve Cox and one of his friends in your own life? All right, well, looks like we're going to move on to, who is that? To Ivan. Back to Ivan now.
All right, thanks, Molly. My question is about the film as a whole and whether it has actionable type of advice. The film provides a lot of inspiration to work across divides, to provide incentives for leaders to treat each other with dignity and to model civil discourse and respect. But did the film provide you with practical ways to achieve such model behavior? Was it just talking the good talk, or did it make you feel that you had the sufficient equipment and insight to go ahead and do something? I'm always a skeptical guy, so I asked a skeptical question. Any takers for that? Oh, Roxanne, bail me out, please.
Oh, yeah, throw your life raft.
Yes.
Well, I think I feel like I'm at the self-analysis stage with all of this. You know, I am in that beginning stage where I'm just really looking at myself and my own behaviors. I feel like I need to do that a while, you know, where I'm changing how I see things. And one of the questions I forgot who it was that asked, like, do you hide who you are? Are you afraid to be honest with who you are? And boy, that question hit me, because I think I probably have been cursed with the nice gene, where I'm always trying to be nice and cordial and friendly and all that in my life. However, in that, the curse of that is that I've hidden, sometimes at the cost of myself, I've hidden who I really am and how I really feel about something. But I can see now that it's important to bring that out. So to answer your question, to bring that around, Ivan, is I feel like I'm still working on myself and how can I start to impact the relationships in my life, my family, or people, my neighbors. I moved into a new community and I am very cognizant of the interactions I have with people and what I say and what I don't say. And so I think it's made an impact about asking myself who I am. Do I want to stay who I am, or do I want to expand and be more honest about my thoughts and my beliefs? So
yeah. Oh, thanks for that. Because I can echo that. I was brought up very shy, and I never really talk much in a group. I always listen more than just talk. And it's only been relatively late in my life that I started to interact more and express myself more in a group. One-on-one, I'm okay, but in a group, I hang back.
And I think,
Anne.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
apologize.
go ahead. Finish up what you wanted.
I think what's still formulating, I can feel it, is that how can I take all this knowledge and information, and how can I then go into to my community here and start to make an impact? I can tell that's what's happening with my mind and my heart. How can I take this forward?
Right.
So I'm not there yet. I'm just a lot of self-work still going on.
No, I hear you, and I'm trying to do the same thing on this side.
Yeah.
And you want to jump in on this one?
Triggered my thought that too many of my friends have a polar viewpoint of politics right now, particularly in the community where I live. And I'm to the point now where I feel like there is so much at stake that I can't afford to hold back. And to the degree that I can articulate my point of view or get them to express what it is that has brought them to feel the way they do, I can't let it go. I just feel that it's incumbent upon us to try to keep democracy in place. And in my view, my way is the right way. And I have a real hard time accepting the polar opposite view of how I feel about what's really going on right now.
Yeah, that can be a tough one. Anybody else? Oh, William, you're back.
Yeah. Well, and you've done a good thing right there. People trust you quicker when they know where you're coming from. And when you open up, this is my experience and this is what I'm after, which you just did, then it's a lot easier for them to respond. And there's less of an unknown. You've made them comfortable. So that's something to practice.
Thank you.
All right, that's a good point. Anybody else want to touch on this? Others, I'll hand it over. I will hand it over to Stephanie.
Okay. So Rachel Brand said, your life is going to be richer if you're willing to be friends with people who are not in the same spot you are in the political spectrum. What is your gut reaction, especially Anne, we were just talking about this, right? To what she said. And do you have any personal examples to support why you reacted this way to what Rachel said?
I've tried really hard to get into dialogue to understand what is the build of information that hasn't come my way to make me feel the same way as they do. And over again, they do not want to share. I don't think that I've pushed them up against the wall, but it's like they can't really, they cannot articulate it, or they feel defensive about it. But I don't feel like they have the same willingness to explore their own thoughts. And I am really trying to understand their arrival. There's somebody here on this screen. I think that Al would be willing to express where he's coming from, and I would be very interested in hearing that if he was willing to share. But more people, it would be productive for me to be able to actually explore what a person's their point of view is, because from my point of view, if I'm going to get right to the nuts and bolts of things, there's nothing about the Republican Party that I can relate to anymore that is like the Republican Party that my mother and father belonged to. And I want to know what is it about their moral compass or their values that is reflected by the Republican Party.
That's great, Anne. That's, you're definitely expressing some, your feelings there. That's fantastic. And I think, I think a lot of people on both sides have that exact same question. That's the real irony, is that we're all asking the exact same question. We're just coming from completely different perspectives. But anyway, Donna, what do you have to say on this?
Well, the reason I got involved in Braver Angels in the first place back in 2017 is I'm interested in different cultures, having lived in other countries in the world. And when I got back to the United States, I realized I did not understand the conservative culture. All my friends are blue. And so Braver Angels was a way for me to burst out of that bubble that I was living in and to make friends across the aisle. And the upshot is I went from a position of not having any friends who were conservative to, through Braver Angels, having various friends who were conservative, including Mr. Ron McFarland here. And so when it was time for me to go to the first Braver Angels convention in 2018, which was in south of me in Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia, I actually took along with me in a carpool 3 reds and 0 other blues. It's just how it worked out. But through Braver Angels, it's just a great way, especially if you get involved in like your local alliances, or if you do a red blue workshop or other things that we have to offer here. It's a great way to enrich your life by getting to know other folks who are not like you. So Anne, participate in a red blue conversation, a one-to-one conversation. That'll get you started.
I did one of those, being blue, I think, in a red sea, or the vice versa, or whatever.
Workshop, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought everything I've been involved with Braver Angels has been really well done. It's still not a quick fix.
So your next step is to go to an experience, go to one conversation, sign up for a red blue conversation, okay? I'll pair you, I promise.
All right, Al, what do you have to say? Oh, Al?
I'm not sure this is the right place to say it, but I heard my name mentioned a moment ago, and I'd be happy to take anybody on a friendly conversation. Unfortunately, my track record, if you look into it, is a little more intense. You might get the wrong idea. I like the Democrats. I know, I really do. They're good people. They do a lot of good things. I know people who've been to Central America and places like that to, fight for human rights and whatnot. I mean, I wouldn't do stuff like that, and they stick themselves out on a limb to go out and do what they believe is the right thing for social justice and so forth. I'm very impressed by that. On the other hand, domestically, in the way we govern ourselves here, how we do things matter. And let me say that again, how we do things matter. Now, I'm a former federal employee and a precinct delegate in the Republican Party, and I've taken the oath of office to support the Constitution numerous times. You may recall that when Donald Trump was asking the Secretary of State of Georgia to find some votes, however that's done, and the guy cited his, what was his name, Raffensperger or something like that, he cited his oath of office as standing in the way of him doing that and cooperating with that. Well, I feel the same way about it. It didn't expire when I retired. It's a part of me. It's it's something I still believe in and I will support. And much of what the Democrat agenda consists of violates my oath of office. It's contrary to what the Constitution of the United States requires. And I'll go into that in excruciating detail if people want to do that. That's part of it. And someone's like time out. Does that mean I'm going over here on time? Okay. Well, like I said, this may not be the place, but I don't know what is the place. You only get a couple of minutes to make a speech or whatever. I can tell you where to find stuff I've written if you're interested, and I can cut it short at that. Is that all right?
All right.
Put
Well,
it
thanks.
Pardon?
Yeah, thanks. You can put any information. Would be great to put in the chat.
I'm not a big fan of the chat, but I'll try that. Someone said something about the dignity index. I checked in there. I didn't see how you're supposed to score it or do anything with it. It was just a series of scores 1 through 7 or something like that. Anyway, I need a little bit of a break and I'll be back and put something in the chat. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Ron?
Stephanie, just go ahead and take one more person since we're up against 8:30 here.
Okay. You bet. All right. Ron?
Well, I'll make it brief. Since my name was brought up as a conservative or Republican, I became a Republican when I was a kid. And only because my father, who didn't like either party, he gave me one little thing. He said, when I read, he was a big reader, and I'm that way now myself. He modeled it. He didn't tell me to do it. He just modeled it. He always had a book in his hand. But anyway, getting to my point is that he always also told me, don't become the book. He says, judge a man by the man, but not by his policies, not by his political party. He said, he always said that to me. He said, just because a man is a Republican or a Democrat, that doesn't make him a demon. And what has happened is we base all our stuff on emotions. If you take away the emotion, you will love me, so to speak. The negative emotion is what I'm saying. So start with that. Start with just self-reflection with yourself, why you believe in what you believe, and then go from that and go LOVE, just like someone said. We are all Americans, but we just have a different way of doing things. That's all.
That works every time. All right, great. Yeah, so William, I know you, let's just get one more comment in. I know that we want to move on to the next question, but go ahead, William, real quick.
Yes, if your goal is to change someone, you're going to poison the conversation. If your goal is simply to learn more, then after you've learned more, you will have somebody you can talk with.
Awesome. That was worth it. Great. All right. Ron, we're on to your question, 10.
Oh, number 10. Okay, the number 10 kind of falls right into this, what we're talking about. Discuss why the Governor Cox believes political outcomes are often seen as binary. What factors contribute to this outcome? And then just give you an example. It'd be just like if you have a strong loyalty to a certain ideology, and you only think two ways. You either think their way or my way. You know what I mean? I mean, it comes down to that. And so if that could help you with that question, believes political outcomes are often seen as binary. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Well, another way to look at it is the media, how they frame things. It's either CNN says it's this way or Fox News says it's this way. It's kind of, you can look at things in a lot of different ways. Conflict, controversy, that kind of stuff, to help you. So, because I was a former teacher and I see the eyes fluttering. So, anyway. And if we don't have any thoughts on that, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, Roxanne, thank you. I got one. I'm
well,
fishing.
I just think that they're so much more complex. There's so many shades of gray. I don't think, and what I'm learning from all the work that I'm doing with all of you is that it's not so simple. It's not black and white, you know. When I listen to people, so I guess that's what I would say is that that's what I'm learning is that
But what do you think about it when politicians think it's black and white and not complex or multifaceted? Because sometimes, if you think about the advertisement, you know, the border, they're bringing in all their scum and blah blah blah. And then the other side is, well, we need people to work in our country. We need all the hands. That is binary. You know what I mean? I mean, they're giving you different reasons to stir emotions. So,
yeah, and that's, I guess, kind of a whole different question, but I think it's all true. The truth is, for me, what I'm seeing is, I'm learning is, if I open my mind, it's all true. And you get to, I think we get to discern what's really the truth in there, what's the kernel of truth, and where do I, you know, how does that match to my standards of living? You know, for me, I get to choose what's true for me and try to wade through all that rhetoric on TV, you know, and understand the issue, go deeper, I guess, go deeper into the issue and really learn like what's really going on here, you know, what's behind this. I don't like to stop at fear. I don't let fear stop me, you know, like don't try to scare me about something. I'm going to learn more about that, you know. Okay, how many people really did rape people from Mexico, you know, how many we're talking about? 2, you know, or what is the real truth there? So, you know, that's a tough issue, right? There's no cut and dried. That's such a complex issue. I mean, that's
it's done on both sides. You know, it's not just one or the other. Both sides do it. I was in a conversation with a young student at Iowa State, and I usually pass out my cards, trying to get them in Braver Angels. You know, my goal is 30 people a day. You know? So anyway, this student sat and talked with me, and he was talking about Hamas and Israeli, you know, the conflict and everything. And he says, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe, this channel or this channel. And we got a deep conversation. And that was very remarkable for a student. After I was talking, you know, it came up because of Braver Angels. We heal political, you know, divides. And I thought, oh man, this student is something else. And I got his number, and hopefully I can get him in our alliance.
Yes, it would be great to have the young people. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the next one. How about Stephanie? Stephanie, take over, Stephanie, on the next question.
So Tim Shriver grew up in a very political environment. It took me a minute even to make the connection, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's about as political as it gets. His comment is, we lived in times of great division. We have not necessarily lived in times of great paralysis. What are other differences between prior times and division and now? Or even, do you think we're in paralysis? I kind of thought about that, and I see people trying to do a lot of things. It's gonna be overwhelming because there's just so much, but I see a lot of people running around trying to do something. And I think everybody on this call is trying to do something, you know, even if it's just, you know, watching a film and getting some new perspectives. You know, there's lots of other things to watch. So, you know, either you agree or disagree with the paralysis, or other, you know, differences between prior times of division.
Well, speaking to a really recent, here, let me raise my hand. Sorry, Stephanie. Speaking to a really recent time of division in all of our own lifetimes, I was thinking about the whole lame duck Congress under Obama, and, you know, not passing legislation. I actually feel like it's, in some ways, we're we're doing better than then, if I dare say. There was such a that period is just known for being such a standstill as far as a lot of legislation. I mean, obviously, the Affordable Care Act was a huge change bill that changed things that did pass. But no, I was just thinking, we're better than the Civil War, which is an extremely low bar when we all killed each other. And we seem better than the time of, I mean, literally under Obama administration, I just kept hearing how nothing could get passed. So maybe we're doing a little better now. Maybe we're recognizing after many years all of our extreme problems, and some politicians are stepping up to do something about it at least, and trying to build these, build these organizations. Because I mean, I know Brave Angels is the largest nationally, but there are many, many organizations and institutions doing what we're doing besides us. So anyway, a little bit of a positive note there.
Does anybody think that we're in great paralysis? Anne?
It sure feels that way in terms of and here I am again with the right agenda, just not allowing anything to go forward in spite of what is imperative for the world to keep democracy alive. World wars, I don't know, there's just so much chaos, not only in our country, but the world. And then you throw in the environment, and it's a really tough time to be alive. I personally am happy that I'm at the end of my life cycle. So that gives me some comfort, actually, and I have no grandchildren to be worried about. So isn't that a pathetic way of approaching the world?
No, definitely not pathetic. It's definitely real, and it's, justified. It's just, but again, I just think if you're a person that, again, even just engaging in conversations like this it's not nothing, questioning, and, and you, Roxanne, really just evaluating yourself, this is all contributing to the greater good somehow, somewhere. That's what I believe, so I can wake up every morning and I can choose to, to whatever gets sucked into the venom or the vitriol, or I can choose to try to have a better conversation. So as long as you kind of choose the latter every day, that's all you can do. William, want to hear what you have to say.
I'm the optimist. I always have been. If I could choose a time in the world to be alive, it would be today. There are just too many problems that would have taken me away from the world earlier, health-wise. There's just, it's a more interesting and engaging place. It probably always was, but it certainly is now.
Now, thanks for that perspective. Al, did you raise your hand, or? Yeah, go ahead.
I was considering responding to some of the things I've just heard. I can relate to that. I'm 71, never got married, never had any kids or grandkids, obviously. And I would just hate to see the world. I mean, we stand on the cusp of going into a dark age like the world has never seen, with no means of climbing out short of the second coming. And, I want to try to do something about that if I can prevent it in any way I can. And there are people who think I'm part of the problem, and maybe they're right. I don't think so. My prayers lately have been, I hope I live long enough to accomplish whatever mission I've been put on this earth to do. but I just as soon leave, like some other people have mentioned. I think I've got something to contribute, and what can I say? I don't know. I'm fumbling for the right words or even ideas at this point. We're all kind of frustrated. We're kind of butting heads over things. And I mean, we look at other people, and there's always pointing at them. We look at Vladimir, I call him Pukin, over there in Russia. I've tried to see things from his perspective. He looks across this broad plain into Eastern Europe, and there's nothing to stop his enemies from attacking him. That's the way they look at things. The people in Ukraine, from what I understand, in the parts that he invaded, actually voted to side with Russia not too many years ago when he came in the first time and took Crimea and what it's called, Donbass or whatever. And the boundaries that were set up after the First World War through the Treaty of Versailles have pretty well held up for the last, whatever it's been, 90 years or something like that. No, over 100 years. And they were based on self-determination, what the people in those areas wanted, and things like language groups and so forth. On the other hand, where does Pukin stop? He could claim parts of Brooklyn, New York, where they speak Russian at that rate. So, I mean, that's where I was born. I don't want any part of him taking part of that. So, I mean, it opens up a real can of worms, depending upon what principles you decide to recognize. Same with Gaza. I have kind of a sparring partner he calls himself kind of a light blue. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier here or somewhere else recently. He's flying into the convention. I haven't met him before. We've been back and forth on a number of things for the last year. And he's got their Braver Angels training as a moderator. He was pretty good at it the one time I tuned in when he was a moderator. Very, very smart man.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to
yeah,
close
we're
out.
wrapping time.
Okay,
Yes.
again, sorry.
No, it's okay. We just hit over
I've backed
time.
away for a while now. I just
Yeah.
felt I had to
No,
jump
that's
in
okay.
again. Sorry.
William, you want to come back around with one more thing?
Yeah, Al, you are humble. You don't have all of the answers. You don't think that one party or the other has all of the answers. And when we find somebody that does, then we know the trouble has begun.
There you go.
Only I can fix it. Does that sound familiar?
Okay. All right. Ivan, you want to
Yeah, and we're gonna close up because of the time. I'm just gonna announce that the next film for the film club, and tentatively the date will be May 16. The next film is called The Harvest: Integrating Mississippi's Schools. This is a documentary by writer and journalist Douglas Blackman about his experience growing up in the Mississippi Delta after the historic 1954 Supreme Court school desegregation decision. So what was forced integration actually like for that first class of public school students? How did that experience affect their lives today? And finally, what are the lessons of school desegregation? That's the kind of issues that we'll be exploring in the next film club. So be there. And I'll turn it over to Molly to give a pitch about Braver Angels.
You have to unmute, Molly.
There we go. Now I know what it is like when technology literally doesn't work. I do know Zoom, but sometimes my mute button just stops appearing at random. Hi guys. So yeah, this was awesome as always. Super inspiring. Actually loved having a smaller group tonight. If you haven't been before and this is your first time, huge welcome. And also know sometimes we have under 20 and sometimes we have 70 something. We never know. So come more often, bring friends. And I want to do a little bit of a brief ending for a pitch for anyone who's not in Braver Angels. First of all, it took me a while to become a member after I'd been active now for almost 4 years. And I'll just say that it is literally coming out to $1 a month, $12. And with that little, you can be helpful in supporting the mission of Braver Angels, which is bringing Americans together to bridge the partisan divide and strengthen our democratic republic. And I definitely feel like we lived that tonight, and I feel really excited about it. And we're trying to really build this America that the founders of Braver Angels envisioned, which is where we respectfully embrace political disagreements, where civic leadership flourishes, and our competing perspectives strengthen our nation. And I did take that from the Braver Angels mission because people who thought about it for months can say it better than I ever can. And if you've ever built an organization's mission statement, it takes months for a lot of opinionated people to agree. And it's a very powerful reminder of who we are and what we want to be. So if you haven't yet made a donation or become a member, please do. And it's sort of like $12 a year, but give what you can. And also just wanted to say that you also give in terms of your time. One of my favorite parts of BA for a number of years actually was the debates. I've been doing the film discussion since the beginning of my involvement, but the debates are phenomenal. If you're not involved in the local alliance, look up and see if there is one. And if there is one, you are hereby empowered to start your own. And it's the way to start building these connections by the thousand. We already have them in thousands, tens of thousands, but just know that, change starts with us, right? So that's what I want to put a shout out for. And I want to also just mention to Anne and others, anyone who felt a little unhopeful, that these kind of conversations always leave me feeling more hopeful than I came in with. And I need a dose of that because people sometimes act like my generation or the one slightly younger is supposed to, I don't know, save America, but we're only building on what came before us. So I appreciate being here with everybody who is willing to engage in thoughtful, tactful, informed political discussion. This is extremely powerful. And I hope you'll consider being a member to make it, continue to be possible. So thanks, everybody. See you next month. May 16th looks like for The Harvest. And I can tell you, having seen the movie, it's incredibly, extremely powerful, exciting. And I hope you'll give it a shot and come see us in a month or a few weeks rather. Bye, guys.